Welcome back to the Observable Unknown. There's a persistent illusion that perception leads and belief follows. That first you see, then you decide what it means. That order doesn't hold. You don't encounter the world as an open field. You encounter it as a filtered one, shaped in advance, weighted before arrival. Andy Clark, writing from the predictive processing tradition, proposed something quietly radical. Clark's work doesn't emerge from abstraction. It develops within the late 20th and early 21st century shift in cognitive science, one that begins to move away from the brain as a passive processor toward the brain as a predictive system. At institutions such as the University of Sussex, where Clark spent much of his career, this model took form alongside advances in computational neuroscience and Bayesian theory. Perception was no longer framed as reception, but as inference. A controlled hallucination guided by expectation and corrected by error. By the early 2000s, this view had begun to reshape how cognition itself was understood, not as reaction, but as anticipation. The brain isn't a passive receiver of sensory input, it's an active generator of hallucinated expectations. Perception in this model isn't built from the outside in, it's negotiated between what arrives and what was already expected to arrive. You don't see first, you predict, then you correct. There's an entry from the 1770 journal of Sir Joseph Banks, the famous British naturalist, botanist, and scientific patron, renowned for accompanying Captain James Cook on the HMS Endeavour voyage. Banks records the arrival of the HMS Endeavour along the coast of Australia, a vessel of scale, structure, and movement, a remarkable intrusion into the horizon that, by any European measure, should have commanded immediate attention. And yet, he notes something remarkably peculiar. The people on the shore didn't appear surprised, they didn't gather, they didn't react as one might expect. According to Banks, the Aboriginals didn't even see the ship arrive. It's been repeated, often too casually, as a curiosity, but read more carefully, and a different possibility emerges. What cannot be predicted is not perceived at all. If perception is shaped by priors, then the unfamiliar does not simply arrive and register. It must first be made legible, comparable, nameable, expected in some form. Without that, it doesn't settle into perception cleanly. It flickers or it's dismissed. Lisa Feldman Barrett extends this architecture even further. Barrett's work emerges from a different but converging trajectory. At Northeastern University in the early 21st century, her research challenged one of the most stable assumptions in psychology, that emotions are universal, biologically fixed responses. Her theory of constructed emotion suggests something far less comfortable, that emotions are not discovered within the body but assembled by the brain. Using past experience, cultural context, and predictive need, this places emotion directly inside the same predictive architecture Clark describes, not as reaction but as preparation, a shaping force rather than a consequence. Emotion isn't a reaction to perception, it's part of the prediction itself. The brain doesn't wait to feel, it anticipates feeling and organizes perception around that anticipation. You don't see something and then become afraid. You're prepared to be afraid, and the world arranges itself accordingly. That's where belief enters, not as conclusion but as force, a quiet gravity pulling perception into alignment. Belief doesn't announce itself, it doesn't declare its influence, it simply makes certain interpretations feel immediate, and others altogether impossible. In my own work, particularly in Twin Vaults of the World and the Argonautica Vault, I examine how knowledge survives across time. Through encoding, layered, oblique, resistant, yet even these encoded systems still require interpretation, and interpretation doesn't occur in a vacuum. Each reader arrives with priors, cultural, intellectual, emotional. The text doesn't change, but what's seen within it does. What happens to texts happens to the world. You're not seeing reality, you're seeing what your structure permits you to see. What's often called bias isn't merely error, it's stability, a way of preserving coherence in a world that would otherwise completely overwhelm an individual. If belief organizes perception, then disagreement isn't always about facts. It's about different worlds. Certainty feels earned, grounded, self-evident, yet beneath it is a structure that's already decided what counts as evidence. There's no neutral perception, no untouched view, no clean encounter with what is. There is only expectation meeting sensation and settling into something that feels like truth. And sometimes what doesn't fit doesn't register at all. You don't believe because you've seen, you see because you've already believed. If this shifted something in how you perceive what you see, if even a small portion of what felt immediate now feels somehow constructed, take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, not as a favor but as a signal. It allows this work to find those who are ready to question what they have taken for granted. Until next time, remember, you don't become what you feel. You become what you return to. What you return to returns as you.